want to start by talking about, what is backwards design? Because we can't talk about how to use it if we don't know what it is. And I think we talked about this a little bit last week, but I think one of the things that trips people up around time is thinking in time about time, excuse me, in a forward motion. So we think, oh my gosh, it's 3 o'clock. I have to be ready to get on this YouTube live with and connect with Andy at 10:04. So I'm thinking forward. Well, I want to do this before I do it, and I want to do that before I do it, and I start to feel anxious because I'm thinking about what has to go in between where I am now and where I want to be. And the thing about backwards design is it relieves anxiety because we're able to plan from imagining where we are finishing to to where we are now, and that helps. So, for example, instead of me thinking, "Oh, it's 3 o'clock. Oh my gosh, I got to take a shower. I have to eat something. I need to return a phone call. I want to make sure that the downloadables available for everyone." I start to feel activated. And instead, what I did was I thought, okay, it's 3 o'clock. I have to meet Annie at 3:50. So let's go backwards. I'm going to take a shower and get dressed. That'll take about 15 minutes. I want to make a little something to eat. That'll take about another 15 minutes. Then I want to set up my tripod and, put everything together. And I was still dealing with this crazy curl when we started. And so that'll take about maybe 5 to 7 minutes. So then I add that up. And how much time is that? 15 and 15 is 30, 37. So then I can think, okay, whew, I only really need maybe 40 minutes to get ready, and I have 50. So I have a little bit of time to play with. I can return my phone call if I want when everything is organized. And I think this is very helpful for people with ADHD because we know that anxiety and ADHD travel together 50% of the time. 50% of people with ADHD have anxiety. And so, what we want to do is to try to curb that anxiety as much as possible. And backwards design is something that can help you do that. The challenge is estimating how long something takes. And I am a chronic underestimator. I don't know about you, Annie, but I'm a chronic underestimator. And so, what I've learned, and I've learned this the hard way, is to add 5 minutes to every estimation that I make. So if I think, okay, it's going to take really only takes me like 10 minutes to shower and get dressed, but I'm going to add 5 minutes just in case. And that extra 5 minutes, that what I call that just in case 5 minutes, has really helped me. Some people need 10 minutes of just in case. Figure out for yourself what that is. And
Mhm.
then we can move forward. And I'm seeing a bunch of comments, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Well, adding in that buffer, that 5-minute buffer, kind of
Mhm,
addresses the first comment here from Layla, who said her frustrations are with her ability to stay consistent with so
mhm.
many variables and also fluctuating energy. So if
Right.
we just assume that we're going to need 5 or 10 minutes more than
Mhm.
what we first think, then you're leaving yourself that wiggle room for a tough day or for something to pop up unexpectedly.
Exactly, and, probably a non-time challenge person would say 10 minutes, but for me, that was a little bit too big of a leap, because I'm ready, and then it's like, "Okay, I have 10 minutes before I'm ready," and then I'll take on a task, and that's where I'll shoot myself in the foot. So I just do 5 minutes because then if I have a few extra minutes, I can work on my Wordle, which is super stumping me today, or I can, check my emails or something that isn't going to really distract me from the main thing that I'm waiting for.
Hmm. Um, and VS joins us as well and asks or comments that a lot of these strategies sort of run on systems of habit. And we know that it takes a considerable amount of time. There are different estimates, but it takes a considerable amount of time to develop a new habit and add 25 to 40% more for ADHD folks. So he follows up and asks, do you keep all this planning in your head when you're doing the backward
Mm,
design? I know
mm,
that when I'm developing a new habit, I have to literally write down the minutia and I
mhm.
have to write it down. I sometimes also put it in a digital calendar to alert myself, but I have to write it down. And I think that different strokes for different folks. Some people prefer a digital calendar that they can bring with them everywhere, that as long as they haven't lost their phone, they're going to have access to that calendar. And other people really need to see it ink on paper. So, um, me personally, I need both. Um, and then I feel like Sharon, who I think is frozen at the moment, but I'm sure she'll be back.
I am frozen. Oh my God, I'm frozen. How do I deal with this?
You
Okay.
might, let's see. I don't know if I can refresh you. Oh, hi. I just you got to look at my coffee cup. Um,
I'm frozen.
well, let's hope you get unfrozen maybe.
I'm not sure how to get unfrozen. Hold on. There's a bookmark thing. Do you know how to get unfrozen in a do you know how to get unfrozen?
Yeah, we can hear you,
YouTube.
Sharon. So
You
we
can hear
might.
me. I'm asking my friend who's here, who's really techno savvy, but I am frozen picture wise.
Yeah.
Um, if I left this, I don't want to leave, but maybe I need to leave and come back or something. I don't know. I don't know how to get unfrozen. The three little dots at the bottom are not helping me, and it says that it's live. So
Elizabeth suggests turning off your camera, turning it back on again. We're on our phones because that's what YouTube wants us to do. And VS suggests rejoining the stream. We can definitely try that if you go back to the link that I sent you. Um,
okay, I'm gonna go back to the link. Bye.
okay. Okay, everyone. We're going to try this.
To
Um,
exit. Hold on. I'm gonna leave.
okay. You're stuck with me for a minute. Um, Sharon was talking about anxiety, and the anxiety factor should not be ignored from my perspective. And having that double um, the double calendaring, my to-do list
I think I'm
written
back.
down.
Yay, I'm
All
back.
right, you're
Okay.
unfrozen. Thank you everyone for your
Word to
text.
the wise, somebody called me and that killed it. So I don't know how to manage that because I can't control when people are calling. Anyway, I want to go back. Thank you all for your patience. So I want to go back because VS asked a really good question. And thank you, VS. And thank you, everyone, for your patience. And hopefully, we can edit all of this out. Um, one of the things that we know is that living with ADHD means living with consistent inconsistency. And despite efforts to do things differently, when people are interrupted, when there's something that's unexpected or unplanned, it will sort of turn your focus and your whole being to that thing. And then you can lose track of what it is you were doing. And so, what we want to accept is first that people with ADHD we get distracted a little more easily, but also that when you are dealing with time, that we want to figure into our calculations space for that distractedness. So that means that extra cushion of 5 to 10 minutes. Um, I want to go back and say something about building habits. So the research basically suggests that it takes about 3 minutes, 3 months, 3 minutes, we wish, 3 months sorry, little discombobulated here from this whole thing. 3 months to build a habit. And we can expect that it might be a little bit longer for people with ADHD who are naturally challenged in this area of consistency. So when we're thinking about backwards design, it would make sense to have a piece of paper and a pencil and start off basically saying, this is 4 o'clock. This is 3:45. This is 3:30. So you have a visual map. Many people with ADHD do better with visual cues. And so this could help you. I think the challenge is that people feel like, oh, there's so many calendars and there's tools and this and that. It doesn't work. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about building a habit. And you might want to just start with one thing. So I worked with somebody, and their main challenge was getting to work on time. They basically got to work on time about 3 out of 5 days a week. Actually, it was 2 when we started. And so we worked on backwards design only in the morning, only in the morning. And we laid it out, we made a map, and she posted it in her kitchen. She had a copy in her bed in her bathroom. So she knew that she could check it out. And she improved her timeliness by, like, I don't know, what do you call it? Like 200%, because she went from 2 days a week to 4. And we thought that was a major success. But it took time. It took those 3 months because it was so uncomfortable to kind of shift to that.
Hmm. This reminds me of, it's not exactly backwards design, but um, this topic of building new habits is the
Yes.
stacking habits,
Yes.
which
Yes.
which maybe you guys have all heard about it, but basically it's like you have some reliable habits in your life. For me, it's brewing the coffee so that I have a hot cup of coffee when I sit down at my desk at 9 a.m. And so if I can work in, like Layla just said, she's trying to work in a routine for not forgetting a medication in the middle of the day. Well, now I'm trying to do that because I'm super bad about taking like my magnesium and fish oil. And so I'm working on stacking that new habit on the coffee
Mhm.
by keeping the
Mhm.
magnesium and the fish oil with my coffee cups.
I love that, Annie, because it's really simple. And that's kind of what we're talking about. Like, you pick one thing. So if you know that it takes you out on a good day, 15 minutes to drive to work, and on a bad day, 25 minutes to drive to work, then you want to leave 25 minutes every day. So, because you don't know if there's gonna be traffic or not. And and with that might be, so first it's the departure, right? And then you might want to add stopping for a cup of coffee or making a cup of coffee to go with you, and that take, what that time is, and then move the time, like, let's say that takes, let's say you're going to make coffee, and I don't know how long it takes you, but maybe it takes 10-15 minutes, and then you add that.
Hmm.
So then
Um,
it's 25 plus the 15.
yeah. Now, Layla did also ask about too many calendars,
Hmm.
and a tendency to double book and forget because it's just hard to manage. I have this problem because I have a work calendar and I have a personal calendar,
Hmm.
and by the nature of things, you've got to have some items in both calendars, right? But any advice for kind of managing technology, the technology,
Yes,
keeping things
yes.
simple?
So, I do notice that Misty says that you're not, this isn't helpful. So I don't know if you mean you would like something from us that's different. And if you would, Misty, please ask a question. We'd love to hear it. Um, Malika says, that iPhones have things built in and to give you a notification. And I find those notifications to be very helpful. And I'll set those at different times. So I needed to be here at 10 of 4. So I set a notification for 3:30 and a notification for 2:30 so that I knew it was coming in case for some reason I forgot. So that's very helpful. We also can color code our calendars. So for some people you can have separate calendars. I know for me I can't. I won't keep track of them. So I have one calendar, but I have work items, and those are always orange. I have personal items, those are always green. I have speaking and appearances, those are always blue. And you can create that in your calendar with various colors that work for you, and then they just come up, they pop up automatically. You choose them, and I think I find that to be very helpful as well. And One of the things that I think, when we're talking about time, is that time can be very slippery. Ari Tuckman talks about that, and when we say slippery, it's like it goes by and you're like, where did it go? I just had an hour and now I have 5 minutes. How did that happen? Where did it go? And so we want to learn to understand where it goes. How are we actually spending our time? And this is really about paying attention to time. And this means using an analog clock face, watch face, instead of a digital watch face. So I talk the talk. I have an analog on my iWatch, and my other watches are all analog. I don't use any digital because with analog you see time move and you understand, oh, I have this much space. Not And with digital you don't get that visual um, kind of boost. And so I really want to encourage people to start to put analog clocks around their house or wear one so that you can see the time move. It's helped me estimate more correctly, and it's helped all of my clients who have switched because to analog um, devices more effectively.
Hmm. Yeah, the time timer is a popular classroom tool, but
Hmm.
we know plenty of adults who use it at work and otherwise. You set yourself a half an hour for a given
Hmm.
task, and um, in a way, your brain almost gamifies the experience in trying
Hmm.
to beat the clock. And if you beat the clock, maybe you reward yourself with, 5 minutes of scrolling social media. I don't know, whatever,
If you can get off, right?
whatever your treat is. Yeah.
Right.
So that's a classroom tool. And VS, thank you for your suggestion. It has actually never occurred to me to share the different versions of me with each other so that my work calendar is shared with my personal calendar. And I'm going to do this after the call and see what happens.
It's true. I have a program that I use for my with my clients, and it syncs automatically with my Google Calendar, and it's so helpful because I don't have to worry about when my clients are because it just pops up automatically. I love that. I think the other thing that we want to think about is this idea of kind of squeezing too much in to a given amount of time. Because many people with ADHD don't feel time correctly, or somehow it slips by, or they think they have more time than they actually do, or they underestimate how long something's going to take. We really want to build a sense of what our capacity is to focus within a certain amount of time. So that we're not pushing ourselves in ways that we can't really sustain or follow through on. So, for example, you may feel like you can actually concentrate on a task for 35, 45 minutes. Let's say 45 minutes. And then actually your mind starts to wander. How are you going to notice that? And how can you actually start to pay attention to that? That's an important task for adults to be able to do. So that if you're drifting, what happens usually is you drift and you don't know that you drifted until you come back. And what we want to do is when you come back from your drift, make a note of how long you've been working, because that tells you you've reached your max a few minutes before. So instead of feeling bad that you drifted, just work for 40 minutes and then take a walk around your space, stretch, use the bathroom, get a glass of water, and then come back having left yourself some breadcrumbs, so to speak. And I think that that's really helpful for people in terms of of estimating time to get a sense of what they're capable of doing within a block.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, I want to invite anyone who has joined us here, who's listening in. If you have a specific problem, challenge regarding time, routines, schedules, making your day flow somewhat smoothly, we are here to see if we can offer some ideas for you.
Mm. I think the other thing is about making commitments related to time to other people. So, for example, if you commit to a meeting with somebody at a certain time and you don't show up for that meeting, how do you handle that? How are you setting yourself up for success? Are you leaving reminders for yourself, alerts on your phone? Technology can really help those of us who are time challenged. And instead of fighting with it, we want to use it to our advantage. You talked about the time timer. A lot of adults like the Pomodoro method, which does have an app that you can put on your computer. It's called the tomato timer, and that can be helpful. There are other things that can help you, other apps, to sort of stay focused. Stay on task is one of them, and it kind of pops up on your screen periodically and redirects you. So that's not necessarily, time management related specifically, but it does affect how you interact with time, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. Getting a better sense of what your relationship is to time. So I would ask the people who are here, what is your relationship to time? What do you notice is a strength that you have, and what do you notice is a challenge? So, really, what do you notice is a strength in terms of how you manage time, and what is a challenge for you? If you are someone who manages time well, please share some of your secrets. Those of us who are here would love to know. It's always, really pleasantly surprising to me when I work with clients with ADHD who not only come to their appointments with me on time, but arrive 5 minutes early and sit in the waiting room. And they come into my office and say, "How do you do that?" And they said, "Well, I basically do backwards design. I know that it's going to take me 15 minutes to get here, and I don't want to be late, so I leave myself 20." And I think
Mhm.
that's really, really helpful. So if you can walk away from today with anything, it's about not just, working backwards from your end goal, but leaving yourself a cushion, a buffer. And I also want you to leave with that idea of stacking that you have one habit like your coffee, and now you're going to add to it taking your vitamins, so that they're related. Um,
Mhm.
mhm.
Um, we just have a few minutes left, but Josette asked an interesting question about somatic exercises. I have not personally heard of somatic therapy to improve sort of time blindness, time management. I think I've heard of it more in the context of trauma, but perhaps you have heard of using somatic therapy in different ways. I don't know, Sharon.
Well, I think that when we think about somatic therapy, what we're really talking about is body awareness, and how we move through space, and so I think when we're thinking about time and somatic awareness, really what I would ask people to consider is, what is a physiological symptom that you're starting to get like uncomfortable about time, and what is it about, what thoughts are related to that physiological symptom? Is it, I'm going to be late again? Is it, I don't want to disappoint someone? What is the thinking process? Because the physical sign and the thinking process go together, and they're both red flags being waved at you to say, "Hey, we need to make a different choice. We need to pivot."
Mhm.
Patricia says time blindness, I've started noting what time I need to leave for work on my calendar since my schedule is not the same every day. I love this, Patricia. So you put on your calendar when you need to leave for work, not when you need to arrive at work. That is actually incorporating backwards design into making a habit. Um,
Mhm.
and Patricia also says if I don't write the time to leave down, I get to thinking that I need to leave at the time I'm actually supposed to be there. Beautiful. That's the really insightful that I just will cut it too close. And I'm sure there are people watching today or listen or later on who are very familiar with the cutting it too close. Sharon Saline is one of them. And it's not something I'm proud of. I just I've gotten better at it because I've used some of the tools that we're talking about. But, I went through a period of time where I was just habitually late. And it was mortifying, to be someone who was kind of like my mother, who struggles with time. I was like, I don't want to do that. And it really, it was my husband basically said, no, we're not doing this anymore. And I was like, okay, that goes both ways. And so we really have changed
Yeah.
how we do things. So,
Yeah. I do want to throw in one last concept before we wrap up. We're almost at time here. Um, and that is an idea that came out of a conversation that we had actually with the Holderness family
oh,
about the really how intensely people with ADHD experience and will avoid boredom. And
mm,
my theory is that this um, the intensity with which we experience boredom makes us cut things close because we don't want to be sitting in that waiting room. Sitting in that waiting
mm,
room is
mm-hmm,
awful. I don't
mm-hmm,
know if this is a universal feeling or not, but you guys can let me know in the comments if this factors at all into kind
mm-hmm.
of how you psychologically manage time. Is just the idea that
Right.
I'd rather just squeeze in this one more thing, get this thing done, and maybe I'll be a minute or two late, and then it ends up being more than a minute or two.
Right. I think that's so interesting, the idea that we want to avoid boredom. I think that, in some ways, technology has shifted that for us because we can arrive at a place early. And because if we have our portable computers known as our phones, there are things that we can do, read, look at to kind of fill that space. Whereas I don't think 20 years ago that was the case. I will say it's very interesting. About, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, I tore my ACL and I had to have it replaced. And it was my right leg, so I couldn't drive. I had to, I hired some, college kids to drive me. And so I had to be ready when they would pick me up and then they would take me to places in a non ADHD time frame. So I frequently sat and waited at places for at least 5 to 10 minutes. And I was like, wow, this is a whole different world. Like, I'm not, my heart isn't racing. I'm not anxious. I'm not feeling guilty that I'm late. And that I think was the beginning of when I started shifting how I related to time. So I think there is a kind of restlessness with waiting with nothing to do that happens for people with ADHD. And that's sort of a good excuse to bring a newspaper, bring a book, um, bring your knitting, play whatever you want to play on your telephone, your cell phone. And so I think that's interesting. And maybe that's a topic we can cover in a later YouTube, which is all the different ways we avoid boredom and what we can do to tolerate it more effectively.
Great idea, and just interesting. Dan H writes in to say that uh, boredom fuels his procrastination, basically.
Mhm. Mhm.
And he says, I find that anxiety is the only way I get anything done at this point.
Mm.
So let's come back to this topic of boredom, maybe some procrastination,
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
some productive procrastination.
Mhm.
This is a topic that Sharon knows a lot about.